Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be working on my golf cart build as a hunting buggy. I tried to decide if I wanted to buy a four-wheeler or a golf cart. My father-in-law actually had a golf cart that he was going to be getting rid of, so I asked him if he'd be interested in selling it to me. I'm wanting to turn this thing into a hunting buggy. It's electric, 48 volt EZGO RXV. I believe it's a 2010. He was having issues with it where when you go to press the gas pedal, it kind of chugs. He said while it's driving, it shimmy. But when I purchased it from him and we went to drive it up on the trailer, it wouldn't hardly go. It was almost like a grinding crawl. And it doesn't have four-wheel drive low, so I know that wasn't a good thing. After testing everything, I didn't get into the brake pedal because my gut was telling me that it was the controller. I thought instead of just replacing the controller with a factory OEM, I decided to upgrade and go with the Navitas. So I have a Navitas AC motor controller. It has Bluetooth built in. It has an external controller that goes on the dash, so you can adjust your acceleration, your takeoff speed, your top speed. So that's what I'm going to be installing today. Why don't you hop in the vehicle and follow along. All right, first thing you're going to do is remove your seat. At that point, I would go ahead and remove your negative battery cables, which I've already done, as you can see here. The cart is off, the key is off and removed, and then I pulled out these that were here that hold on your tow switch cover. That allows your run or tow mode. I've got it in tow mode right now. After that, I went ahead, removed the controller plug from right here. You just lift this tab up, slide that out. I also marked all of my placements for my cables here. Remove the cables from here. They have color wraps on them. Make sure that you keep those on. If they're wearing off, I'm going to grab some colored electrical tape that I'll put on there in the end to make sure that I know where those different cables run to. I also went ahead and removed the solenoid because I have an upgraded solenoid to install as well. There are 3 screws holding this controller plate into place. One is going to be on the back down here, one is going to be under the front corner here, and one is going to be under the front corner here. As you unplug these cables, make sure they're tucked down where they can't catch an arc. I know that I have a lot here, but this can hang over the side, this can hang over the side. The only thing I have to really deal with is the solenoid, and I don't want to unhook it until I'm ready to replace it. The one thing I can do is I can remove this nut, and I'm using a 1/2 inch for this to get that white cable off, so I have a little bit more distance. This is also the red cable that runs to your controller. I'll pop the white cable off, put the controller power back on, and put the nut back on. Now I've got a lot more room to move these out of the way. 15 millimeters it is. And that wrench is not going to get on it. So let's try a 15 millimeter ratcheting wrench. So it's recessed a little bit. It's going to be a little bit of a pain to get out of here, but I think we can still do it. I thought about pulling the body off of this because one of the videos coming up is going to be applying a camo wrap, vinyl wrap. But I'd rather not get into pulling the body off today. Alright, so that one's broke loose. Now if I can get down here and get that bolt out, it's not easy, I'll tell you that. There we go. That's better. It's hard to get my hand down around it. Alright, so this was what I was talking about. Now we're going to have to disconnect this cable. And this one I can just disconnect from the top here. Not real sure what this piece is here on top, but I will add it here on the video when I look it up and find out, because it has self-tappers. Alright, so there you go. There's the old controller with the cooling plate. And I believe this controller is bad. I'll probably pull it apart and check it, because if it's got any pieces I can replace, then I'll do that and turn around and sell it. My day job is in IT, so I deal with a lot of circuit boards and computer components. You'll use a 10mm to remove those nuts to take the solenoid off. I tend to lay parts out in kind of a pattern so I don't lose where they go and the direction they go in. .13mm. We'll take these nuts off to remove this. I think it's a resistor. You don't need to remove them completely, I don't believe. So we're just going to loosen them up. This thing will slide out. So we're going to remove these two screws to take this little electronic controller board off that I think it runs to what I think is the resistor, this coil, resistor coil. When that comes loose, the entire coil's loose. Now we're ready to remove that coil back plate. You need to remove these three bolts. This one here, and that one there. Those are 10mm, I believe. So I'm going to grab a 10mm socket. Now we'll want to hold on to these bolts because they will go onto the new controller plate. I know you are thrilled that in this video you don't have to sit and look at my mug the whole time. It's going to be interesting to see what this controller can do to this golf cart, because from everything I've read, they can increase the speed up to 30, 35 miles an hour, which I have a factory motor on here. Everything I read, these motors are good. But I've got the original factory motor, and I'm not planning to change that out unless I have to. Now the batteries I will end up changing out at some point. I'm not looking to do those yet. They're working fine, they're holding a charge fine. I plan to get through a season or two, and believe it or not, these batteries are almost 10 years old. Alright, so there's the old controller with the mounting plate. Here is our coil plate. We'll be reusing that again. Got some stickers. Got the controller. I got the book. And another cable. So here's the aluminum mounting plate for the new controller. It's definitely lighter. Here's the replacement solenoid I'll be installing. And here is the controller that mounts up at the dash and runs back and plugs into the golf cart controller. Has speed, recon, which I'm not sure what that is yet, and acceleration. So this would be your max speed, how fast you accelerate and take off, and that I'm not sure on. I will look that up and we'll figure it out. So you have 3 holes here. You got the 2 front ones and the rear one. These should match up perfectly to mount in this base. Look at all the extra room. Which I know I got to put that coil cage on the back again, but this is still nice to have some room to work with it. You never want to tighten your bolts immediately. You want to get everything into place. You can get them all the way down, but leave a little bit of wiggle room to be able to move it around. I actually have a little tight, and that way you can get them all lined up, screwing in on threads, and then take it the rest of the way. Alright, so first thing we're going to do once we get our plate in and mounted is I have hardware that's supplied with this controller. I'm going to take these out because these are what I'm going to use to mount the TAC2 controller to the plate. Be sure to note your serial number of your device. I think it's this number here, which is also on the side here, and you'll need to add that in your manual so you have access to it. There's a place to write it in. The controller goes in with the plug facing down, as you can see here, and then it will mount right here using the bolts that are supplied. Once again, we're going to get these close, and then I'll tighten it down at the end. These are also 10 millimeter. So you'll use a 10 millimeter wrench or socket. Your cables hook up based on the letters on the controller and on the wires. Each of the cables have a letter on them with the color coding. This one here is W. This one here is V, and the green is U. We're going to hook up the negative first. That's going to go onto the negative battery terminal over here when everything's done and completed and completely installed. These should also be 10 millimeter. It's cool to drop all the washers off the bolts. Everybody's doing that, so it's on purpose. Green is U to U. Yellow is V. V is here. And blue, as I said, is W, I believe. See, mine are coming off, so I'm probably gonna get some new labels for these. Now I've got two more plugs here. One of them is R and one is the battery positive. We'll connect those in a moment. Next, we're going to mount our resistor, which is this, to our resistor plate, or resistor cage, I think is actually what they're called. You want those cables down, I believe. So that's how we're going to tighten it in. We'll tighten this side by hand, tighten this side by hand, and then we'll take it the rest of the way with the 13 millimeter. So this piece here, whatever this thing is, you won't use that. You will have a white cable that was supplied with your controller. We're going to put the flat washer, then the lock washer. You can use a 13 millimeter on both sides of this. If you start getting that lock washer tight, you won't really need it. It'll tighten down on the bolt and all. So now this is going to get mounted back. Now we're going to get our solenoid mounted on. We're going to call Grandpa, the electrician, see what he thinks.
Well, let me tell you what I would do.
All right.
I would forget about the solenoid for right now. I would hook it up with the old solenoid and the new controller just as it's wired, so that you haven't changed out multiple parts and then you've got other problems and you don't know what was causing what.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I can do that.
And then it looks like, just like it showed on the drawing, that what you were talking about doing is correct.
Okay.
With a positive and negative, and then the main contacts is just straight through.
Okay. That'll work.
But I would, if you can, use the old contactor, the old solenoid.
Okay.
Get it working, and then attack. Worry about changing out the solenoid.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, that way I know all this is hooked up the right way, and that may give me some time to get in and research it too.
Yeah, and you make sure you're not creating another problem by something we didn't know.
Yeah.
All right. Good luck.
All right. Sorry to bother you.
No problem. See you later.
All right. Bye. All right, so what I'm gonna do, Grandpa advised, he's an electrician, is why I go with him, because he understands how a lot of this works better than I do. I know the basics. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hook this up with the old solenoid just to make sure that it's working with the new controller, because I was having an issue and we're assuming the controller is the problem. And if it's not the problem, I'm not telling my wife, because I had to buy this controller. I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, it fixed one of the problems. So we've got all that connected. I'm pretty sure that yellow wire went on there. That'll give me time too to, I'm gonna make another bracket for this solenoid that'll connect on here, and I can mount it a little better. So this plug is going to go all the way over here. Be sure to point your positive controller cable towards this passenger side, because it's got to reach all the way over here on the controller. All right, all of these are tight. I'm going to go ahead and plug my controller in. There we go. This is going to mount back on here. These are all negative cables here. One that I missed is this cable here from the resistor. This has to go on with this back controller post. So this here is the R. That's where your resistor wire is going to go. And it's going to reach all the way around. See? Drop washers. That's what the cool kids do. That's what my dad told me anyway. So this goes to this side of the resistor, and it's going to wrap around underneath, and it's going to go to this R port on your Navitas. See, dropping washers. See, it's kind of the same thing as what my kids nowadays say, that's dripping or something like that. I don't know what's dripping, but I know if you drop washers, you're cool. So dropping washers must be dripping. This electronic controller, I'll reroute the wire later. I'm just wanting to test it and make sure there's no issues with my install. And it's going to plug in next to the controller down here in the bottom, next to the golf cart wiring harness in the bottom of the controller. I'm going to connect all these negative cables back up, and we're going to try and test this thing out. I know I should probably disconnect the positive, because that's where your electricity runs, but negative has always been completely fine with me. All right, let's close this thing up and see if we got it working. There is a wire harness here. I don't think I need that now, because all that's handled through this controller. And we'll plug all this back up perfect later. I'm going to be replacing these seats and all too. They're all nasty and falling apart. So that'll be a different a different episode, make sure you stay tuned. You subscribe and click that bell so you see all the videos I post when I'm working on finishing this thing up. Let's see how it does.